constant arms race almost between those in the security expert field and those that are trying to undermine security.
Kids don't know what the law is.
It's a very broad subject. You can go from, the really cool stuff, the red team stuff, trying to infiltrate buildings, deliberately breaking things.
Cybersecurity affects every one of us.
Welcome back to Hello World, a podcast for educators interested in computing and digital making. I'm James Robinson, computing educator and aspiring cybersecurity champion, although I probably know less than I think.
I'm sure that's not true. Hello everyone, I'm Diane Dowling. I'm a former computer science teacher, and at the Raspberry Pi Foundation, I lead the team that develops Ada Computer Science, a free resource for learners aged 14 to 19 that includes lots of information about cybersecurity. So I'm really excited to be here with James today and our guests, exploring a field that affects all of us day in and day out. And as ever, we'd really value your comments and your feedback, which you can share with us at helloworld.cc/podcast feedback.
This week, we're discussing cybersecurity and why it's important for young people to learn about the latest threats and how to keep themselves safe online. Diane, you create learning materials for Ada, as you've mentioned. What does cybersecurity mean to you, and why do you think it's important?
Okay, so I feel like I'm doing an exam now. So I think the textbook definition is that cybersecurity is the practice of protecting computer systems and digital assets and preventing unauthorized access and theft of our data, especially personal data. But I do think it's really important that we don't just think about cybersecurity as something that we teach or we learn at school. The most important thing is to remember that cybersecurity affects every one of us, and we all need to understand the threats and what we can do to keep our data safe. And to remember that the more time we spend online, which obviously a lot of us spend a lot of time online, the more risk we are at falling victim to a cyber attack. So what about you, James? What does cybersecurity mean to you?
Well, I think you've covered that, I think, quite well, in the sense that I think it is really pervasive, right? Cybersecurity is something that has an impact on every single one of us, like constantly throughout every day of our lives, pretty much, with so much more of our lives being conducted online or requiring access to digital tools. It's really important that we both, as individuals, know how to protect ourselves and to operate safely in an online space. It's important for people going into the workforce to know how to keep themselves and the work they're doing safe and protected, and kind of look after the data that's important. And I think, as well, just as I think this is intrinsic value as well in understanding cybersecurity. I think cybersecurity is just another facet of computing, and computing is just something that fascinates me. And so learning about how security systems work and how we can protect ourselves, and the constant arms race almost between those in the security expert field and those that are trying to undermine security, feels like a really interesting kind of space to operate. But I think, Di, as much as you and I might know about cybersecurity, we're really fortunate today to be joined by two experts in cybersecurity education. So our two fantastic guests are here to share their perspective on this question of why cybersecurity matters. So firstly, I'm really pleased to introduce Claire Walden, who works for the Southeastern Regional Organised Crime Unit, or ROCU, I think is how we pronounce it.
Yes, the ROCU, yeah.
ROCU, yeah. And Claire delivers cybercrime education. So welcome to the podcast, Claire. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Really, really looking forward to today.
Great. And just to kick us off, what is your view of cybercrime and cybersecurity, and what do you think cybercrime education involves?
So the reality of the situation is that over 50% of all crimes now are online. So they are 50% of crime, more than, is cybercrime. And we know as well that the average age of arrest for cybercrimes is around about 17. So for offline crime, the average age of arrest is, we're talking late 30s. So it's a completely different demographic that we're dealing with committing cybercrimes in general. So it's really, really important that we get the message out there to young people, not only about how to protect themselves about, around cyber and cybersecurity, but also how not to slip into committing computer misuse offences whether they intend to or not. It's really about getting that message out there around, online behaviours.
And I'm going to, we'll introduce our other guests in just a moment, but I've got a little tiny follow-up question there. You mentioned like that it's kind of demographically it's a younger person maybe that are getting involved in these kind of issues. Is it about kind of like naivety or awareness that actually the young people don't necessarily realise that what they're doing is potentially a crime, or is there other factors at play?
I think there are many factors at play here. I think part of it is, of course, the young people are growing up in a world where everything is digital. And we know full well, I mean, I'm a parent, we know teenagers like to push boundaries. They just do. I mean, my 8-year-old likes to push boundaries. So teenagers, I can't wait for. But there's lots of things at play. So there's the online gaming sphere. There's a lot of culture around some online games where kids are doing what's called DDoSing one another as part of kind of that gaming sphere. And it's not realised by a load of them that that's actually illegal. That's against the law to do this booting, this stressing, it's known as. But also, for those of them that are committing cyber crimes, they kind of see it as a victimless thing. They can't see a victim necessarily on the end of it. So they're not even aware that it's a criminal act. They're not feeling that it's not that one-on-one kind of action that you get with a in-person crime. But also, the kids don't know what the law is around computer misuse. It's not taught in the curriculum as it stands until I think the first time they start even looking at the Computer Misuse Act, which is the main sort of area of crime that I deal with. They don't look at that until at least GCSE level.
So sort of age 14 up to
age 14, 15, they're starting to touch on these things. But we know that children are online gaming and committing other cybercrimes at younger and younger ages. So we feel like we need to get that messaging in there from sort of ages 7 to 11, the sort of, for in the UK, the top end of junior school, and keep that message being pushed through so that kids understand what the rights and wrongs are around ethical and legal use online.
I'm sure there's loads we can get into in that, but I'm going to hand over to Di to introduce our next guest.
I was going to say I've got so many questions, but it's really important that we introduce our next guest because then we can have a bit of an open conversation from different perspectives. So I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Nick Kelsey, and Nick is the Education Director for Cyber First Northeast, and he's also the National Lead for Cybersecurity for the National Centre for Computing Education, which sounds like a really busy job. So we're really pleased that you had time to join us today, Nick. And I wondered if you could just start by just telling us a little bit about Cyber First and its mission.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Diane. Yes, it is a very busy job, and there's a few other things in there too. Cyber First is a program that came around about eight years ago, and it's backed by GCHQ and the NCSC. And it's designed to identify and nurture a basically diverse range of talented young people into the cybersecurity careers. It's been long identified that there's this growing need. We all heard it during COVID. There's opportunity to retrade into cyber. Last year, there was a job shortage of 14,000 in the UK. And, so we've got that. And this program's come along to really try and address that pipeline. So it offers opportunities around Key Stage 3 to really encourage children to take computing at GCSE, which is, it's in England and the UK is the secondary qualification that we have in education. And then to go beyond that, and it supports students to study cyber or cyber-related degrees at university and provides internship opportunities, links with industry, and as well as financial funding. So it's a bit of a monster, and it grows and it evolves, and there's a diverse pipeline. But really, we're trying to address a UK-wide problem, especially in the tech sector.
Yeah, and is it a popular career? I mean, do people who join it, do they stick in cyber, or is that kind of something they really engage with once they get into it?
Yeah, it massively so. I mean, if you when you start to talk to cyber people, you realise it becomes an obsession. It's a very broad subject. You can go from the really cool stuff, the red team stuff, trying to infiltrate buildings, deliberately breaking things, the penetration testing, to the defensive side, which is like your SOC and your blue teams who are there to protect. So it's very much an open platform where in your career you might start on one thing, but because of the nature of tech and threats that evolve, your career 20 years later might be completely down the garden path, doing something completely different in a very exciting sphere, working with languages that are yet to be invented, dealing with threats that we haven't even identified. So when people get in, they often just sit and they evolve, and it's a very unique community where whenever you go to the event, you see the same people there, saying the same passionate lines and conversations, and it's a very exciting one, which is incredibly rewarding. And what's really interesting for us is now we're in that 8-9 year point. We have pupils who have gone through their degree from the cyber bursary, who were inspired in Key Stage 3, who are now working at lead companies like Microsoft and even within GCHQ and the NCSC, who are now out in the field saying, this is great, come on, get involved. So you're seeing that organic passion come through people. But it can be a very exciting career, depending on which route you take, and there's something for everyone, I think, in it.
So it sounds like both of you are kind of having like conversations on a regular basis with young people about cyber security and cyber crime. How do you first engage learners in a conversation about either the issues, if we're coming at it from that angle, or in the opportunities? Like, what's that sort of first conversation look like? How do we hook the young people? Claire, do you want to kick us off?
Certainly from my perspective, so the work that I do within SROCU is actually around something called the Cyber Choices Programme, which is all about diverting young people who are either at risk of committing computer misuse offences or have committed already some low harm computer misuse act offences. We're about diverting them away from that and pointing them towards sort of legal opportunities to test their skills, use their skills, and potentially, if they've got the interest and the passion for it, to then move on into a cybersecurity career. So actually, the conversations for us tend to start with, something's gone a bit wrong here, you're starting to go down the wrong path. Look at this way where you can use the same skills, but in a legitimate way. And here's a training platform you can use to practice your skills. And these are the jobs that you can look at getting. But for the unit that I work within, and for my role, it's very much about diversion and education about the Computer Misuse Act. So teaching them where not to go wrong and where they can use their skills correctly as such.
So at that point, they've possibly built some skills already.
Yeah.
They have an awareness of the kinds of things that are possible through the technology.
Absolutely.
But your education's more about like how to better apply them.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's exactly that. Yeah.
And is that different for you, Nick?
Slightly, yeah. The way we come about it is, it kind of stems from my internal motivation when we're steering that across our region. You know, for us, we really believe we can provide life-changing opportunities through tech, and it's particular cybersecurity, to students from all sorts of backgrounds. And we know that's our way. We want to take pupils who just have no view of their future and cannot see what they can be in tech, and give them those points of inspiration. So to inspire, we go in with a different point of view. We do big events. They're quite large and in your face, you know, where we've got lots of industry in one room. We bring in, and they'll have sessions going on, and there'll be kids doing all sorts, from trying to physically lockpick things to doing cryptography to doing, you know, working on new challenges that we've designed all around in the digital sphere, you know. And we go for that. We're about inspiration, about letting children see what they can be and looking at opportunities. In our region, in the Northeast, it is a region where there's growth. There's a lot of growth. It's actually one of the smallest regions in terms of the cybersecurity sector, in terms of the industry that's here. But the jobs are coming. We've got a lot of manufacturing, and people are starting to see it now and say, well, actually, you know, I run a car manufacturing plant. If one thing goes wrong in my supply chain because of a cyber attack, it all falls apart. So we're now showing children that actually, if you're looking at that industry and your family have traditionally worked in that manufacturing sector, well, there's a tech opportunity in there as well through cyber. And that can then expand globally, whether it's defense or even, you know, the National Cyber Force as well. So it's inspiration for us. But obviously we link in quite a lot with, like I say, ROCUs in our region, because we really believe that Computer Misuse Act has to be taught, especially when you've got a captive audience who are very keen about cyber. Cause and effect can be a big thing. You know, we're terrible for showing children lots of really cool things, but we have to also make sure they don't then just run off and have a night of entertainment on a PC, causing a lot of trouble.
So it's really interesting that I'm because my experience in teaching has been with older children, so I've been teaching sort of 16 to 19. So I'm not so aware of what's taught at younger ages, but it does seem to me that I think what's coming through here is that we might teach about cybersecurity and things like we might teach things like how to keep your data safe, for example, and tell kids not to put too much on social media or things like that. But we don't teach them much about the law and about the things that they can and can't do. And what kind of age do you think a child is going to be receptive of that and will actually understand the importance of being within the law with what they do with their computers?
For me, I think that kind of engagement really needs to be starting and could be starting from a very young age. As I mentioned before, I've got young children; they're 6 and 8 years old, and Section 1 of the Computer Misuse Act is all about unauthorized access to people's devices, okay, or data, and that's basically about logging into someone's account or device without their permission. Now, I talk to my son and my daughter all the time about picking up my phone because they know the PIN number for it, putting in the PIN number because they want to, I don't know, take photos or listen to some music on my phone. I mean, there are very much rules in our family about what they can and cannot do on my phone, but I'm talking to them now about actually asking permission to even pick up and log into my phone, because I've said to them, if you're doing that without my permission, that is breaking the law. So I think you can have these conversations and start talking to them about permission, because that's what 90% of the Computer Misuse Act is about, is permission. If you don't have permission to do it, don't do it, because it's going to be illegal. And I think that's something that someone very young can understand. So you can absolutely talk to children about that from, age 5 onwards. As soon as they're starting to use devices, they need to know about permission, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's fascinating, but I suspect that probably many teachers and definitely many parents probably don't know themselves. So whilst you can have an informed conversation with your child, there'll be a lot of people out there who can't do that.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of the engagements that we do from Sirocki, a lot of what I do is speaking to safeguarding leads at schools and asking them to roll that message out to staff, because actually computer misuse has been recognised as a safeguarding issue for young people. So Keeping Children Safe in Education actually listed the Cyber Choices programme within Annex B. So if any of you are interested in some bedtime reading, whip it out and have a read. But it's in there. So it's actually been recognised by the DFE. It's a safeguarding issue.
Yeah, putting another hat on, I'm still an active senior leader in a school, and that's it all through school. Now, what that means is children join us at 4 years old and leave at 18, 19 years old. And in there, my heads of computing and curriculum guides, we built a curriculum so our youngest children at 4 years old learn computing, and that's mandatory until the age of 15. They can do an elective qualification in that at GCSE level, which is the 14 to 16 and beyond that. But we embedded cybersecurity in there, and the same time we put online safety in there. We've got all the guidance around online safety, and we read it in Keeping Children Safe Education. And Claire, you're 100% right. It was great this year to see to see the cyber choices and the NCSE line in there. I thought, brilliant. That's exactly what we need. These two are intrinsically linked. We go from a different point of view rather than permissions. We look at the identification of threat. And to me, it needs to be taught to children in the same way, looking left and right, crossing the road. They are now, Ofcom data is telling us, at 3, 4 years old. And I'm a parent of a 2 and a 5-year-old who both have their own iPads. They're supervised and they're very locked down, but they are active users of technology. We've got to say, that's not right. If you don't feel right, that's not right. You need to tell somebody. We've got prevention's better than the cure, and that's where we have to start as early as possible. We're going into a new world. We're all sat here, as computer scientists and people who've worked in cybersecurity. It was lovely to hear James call me an expert at the beginning, but I'm about to become an idiot again, because we're going into the world of spatial computing. We're going into the world of a much, fastly evolving AI and quantum. So we have to then prepare. The idea now, I can sit and I can see what's on my children's iPads. I can hear the things they listen to on Netflix. But I know in the next few years, the hottest item on any Christmas list is going to be a spatial headset. It's going to be, whether it's a Meta or a Vision Pro. And how do I know what my child's doing? How do I know what threats they're going to encounter? So we need to get in as early as possible, as far as I'm concerned. But that's our point of view, and that's what we've built in our institution. Of the earliest we can get. We always argue with industry. We'll say we want to focus on key stage 3, and we're saying actually let's come a little bit earlier. Let's just go a little bit earlier. Let's do year 5, year 6, which is 10, 11 years old, and then rolling it further and further down, because there is that need there, and that specialism is appearing. And the range of primary schools we're working with now are knocking the door saying, "Can you come in? Can you talk to our children? Can you tell them, about exactly as Claire was saying, the risks." Because you've got young children who are doing things which are breaking the Computers Misuse Act now, whether it's they're accessing illegal streams to watch movies or sporting competitions, or they're through illegal content, or they're jumping onto each other's devices. So the earlier the better. We start as early as we can, from 4 years old. It's interesting, and there's times when I used to teach there, and I would do it through song, And if you imagine me, I'm a trained secondary teacher who specialises in 18-year-olds, and it was like kindergarten cop. But it worked, and we've seen the fruits of our labour. But yeah, for me, as early as possible.
Can we hear one of the songs?
There's a dance. There's a chicken dance. I'm not going to do it for our audience, but it revolves around the von Neumann concept about a chicken inputs, it processes its stomach, it stores, and then outputs an egg, and there's various things like that. But that was me on the fly.
It's a real shame we're not recording the video here, because Nick was definitely trying to do some of those actions just then. I think one of the things that sort of pops into my mind as we're talking there, and I was thinking about this earlier on, was this sort of notion of contextualization. The fact that these issues, we can explore these issues with our learners if we bring them to where our learners are. And so, Claire, your example of talking with your children about their use of your phone, right? It's something they're doing. You can relate the issues to them, and then when we're talking about gaming or social media, or I've not heard the term spatial computing, but I'm guessing we're talking virtual reality there, Nick, right? Yeah. So whenever we, and I think it's really important that we connect the things that the kids are doing with the issues that they're going to face. And what that does mean is that we as educators have to be willing to immerse ourselves a little bit in what the kids are doing, and actually understand and get to know our kids, and not think just sort of be ignorant of it. We have to kind of spend that time listening to our learners and relating to the experiences that they're having.
Yeah, absolutely. And something, I've been running some webinars for parents sort of in conjunction with Safer Internet Day last week, and I've got a few more coming over the coming weeks. And one of the things that we show them, there's a really good video for parents by the National Crime Agency. It's on YouTube, so have a look at it. It's a Cyber Choices video called Ollie. And it just shows how little parents understand what they're technically capable, even if they're just gaming, but they're technically capable teens are up to in their bedrooms. Parents very much, and this comes from, the parents that the team I work with go out and do interventions with, they speak to the parents as well. What they tend to find is the parents honestly thought that their kid was some sort of technical genius or just loved gaming. They don't talk to them about what it is that they're doing. And they think it's wonderful because their children aren't out on the streets getting ASBOs or causing criminal damage or assaulting people or, shoplifting. They're up in their room doing all this clever coding and they're gaming all the time and they're brilliant. What they're not doing is talking to them about it, finding out the games that they're doing, talking to them about the websites they're accessing, the chat forums they're on, and then there's a brilliant website called parentzone.org, which has got guides or libraries where there's all the different apps and games that kids go on, and it's got some of the risks around each one. It's really worth a look if you're a parent who's worried. Take a look on there, and there's not advice, but certainly some of the risks to look out for those apps. So have a conversation with your kids for parents. It's absolutely what I'd always say. Talk to them about what they're doing in the same way as you'd ask them if they've been out, where are you going? Who are you going with? what you off to do, talk to them about that online as well, because it's really important that you understand what they're doing.
And speaking as the father of a 12-year-old, sometimes you will not get an answer, but it's worth persisting. Like, they may not want to talk to you, but I think if you can be curious, then I think it shows interest. But yeah, you just got to persist. Anyway, so Diane, do you want to move the conversation?
Well, yeah, because I think one of the things that struck me as really interesting is obviously on one hand we have, the sort of young people that Claire's dealing with, who are clearly very talented, but maybe up to mischief. They don't necessarily do that intentionally. Sometimes it's unintentionally, sometimes intentionally. But no doubt there's a huge amount of talent. And then on the other hand, we've got Cyber First, represented by Nick, that's really pushing to careers in cybersecurity. And I love this idea that we can divert young criminals, let's call them, into something really positive. So this opportunity actually of kind of harvesting talent and being able to push it into a way that actually can be just as much fun for them probably, but is also well paid and a really interesting career. Sounds like a great solution to what is actually a real problem. So, Nick, do you get many young criminals who embark on cyber?
I think the term in computing and cyber security, is like poacher turned gamekeeper. In that respect, and you're right, there's a lot of people who come from that line of work. I've worked with students who've said, who've in their school have done something, and often they've ran into the Roku, and the Roku have then said, actually, have you talked to this guy here? And there's a link in there where we put them through the Cyber First bursary competition, which is a load of online capture the flags, and they can really demonstrate their knowledge there. And they then go on to having a funded degree and have all sorts of great opportunities there. But yes, there's a lot of young children who, there's a lot of buzzwords. We try to stay away from the hacking image of, the lone teenager with his hood up in the bedroom. It's like such a toxic image that haunts us. And we're trying to say, actually, the whole cybersecurity sector now is, it's the most diverse sector you'll ever see. If you go into some of those buildings, which you can't go into, especially the government levels, it's all sorts of people working on these. And some of them, yes, they've come from the wrong side of things, and curiosity's led them down that path. But then you have the complete opposite as well, where you get people who are very protective, and they see it as, national service like they die hard protective of their company and their regions. So you get both sides of the camp. You get the good and the ones who are intrinsically always good and never done anything wrong and kind of seek that legal career and that sort of protection career. And then you're right, you're 100%, you get those, and they often end up in red team positions, which is it's incredibly exciting. And in fact, we've got a little exhibition which I had to get permission from my Roku to do because it involved showing some tools which I won't name, which are used in ethical hacking. They're used to test systems, and showing, we're sitting with groups of kids and saying, look, this is how I could capture all the information in a coffee shop using this small device. And, and those, you see eyes light up, and you say, right, okay. And you see that natural curiosity. And it's that kind of, it all links back to me a little bit to computational thinking as well. You can start to see that, people looking for patterns and those sort of curiosities. But yeah, we get all sorts in cyber.
I was going to ask this, was whether there was a particular attributes apart from interest in hacking the school network that you'd look out for on a young person that might sort of indicate that they would be suitable for a career in this area? Are there other particular things that you'd be looking for?
In all honesty, you naturally think strong at math, strong at computing, has that mindset, and there is that sort of cryptology side. There's those people who do very well there. But because it's such a diverse platform with thousands of different opportunities, the answer to that is kind of not really. I was in a situation with industry about 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to a gentleman who leads a SOC, which is a really big organization that looks for threats across quite a major institution. And I was asking about his degree, and I said, "Oh, are you a computer scientist, or did you a cyber degree?" No, I did a music degree, and actually, I'm a rhythm guitarist. And I went, all right, that's interesting. He said, I've done it since I was a kid. I love driving a band forward. And where he came into this was because he was really good at spotting timing errors. So he knew when a band was going out of time, and that was pattern recognition. So if you put a computational thinking hat on, and we look at actually, his job now is to look for anomalies, to look for the ghosts in the wires and see where there's something happening and go, actually, that's not right. Let's investigate that further. So, and that's partly because there's such opportunity available in cyber right now. There's shortfall of jobs. It's pulling people in from everywhere. You know, I'm recently working with a really large organization who are one of the top 4 in the world. A gentleman was telling me he used to be a bus driver. He had no GCSEs, he had no A levels, he had no formal qualifications, no degree or below. And he struggled with ASD and it was unidentified in school, and his ADHD was unidentified, but he just could spot a pattern. He could spot change in behavior, and it was anything that was at the norm. So truthfully, the backgrounds that people are coming from now are so exciting and diverse that it's exactly what we want, because we need diversity of thought to identify the diversity of threat. And that's what's critical, I think.
Yeah. And just to come off the back of that, I'd say one of the things that we talk about when we're doing presentations and talking about, you know, the possible careers within cyber is that, yes, there is absolute need for the people who are technically capable, but there's also a need for people with other skills as well. I mean, you need project managers within cyber, you need risk assessors, you need like cyber awareness trainers. So, I mean, I've come into cyber sort of an aside to my job, but I'm still working within the field of cybersecurity. But my background is in primary school teaching. And I've come into this role and now very much see my future as being within cyber. And I'm, you know, mid-40s and complete career change, but loving every minute. And I don't have technical skills, but I have a passion for the subject. And I think that's what's really needed. As long as you've got a real interest for it, you can carve yourself out a role within the cybersecurity industry.
I was thinking, and I might be making an incriminating admission here, but I was thinking about my own experience growing up, and I think like curiosity feels like a really important characteristic within this sort of space. And I remember, you know, I grew up at a time when, you know, there was no computer science in my school. It was IT. Computing as an infrastructure within the school was relatively new. And we were kind of given free reign at lunchtimes to kind of play with the computers. And so we'd install games on the computers and find ways to do that when we were supposed to be on library duty. We worked out that we could get it to Visual Basic without via a spreadsheet, and we could make little things. And we made a little spoof password log on screen so we could capture our friends' passwords. And all of these things were going on. And it was, I think, due to a lack of like constructive sort of education opportunities for us to channel that curiosity into, but also a lack of really thoughtful supervision. Now, if at all I've just incriminated myself, we will cut this, because, you know, maybe at one point I might have been due a conversation with Claire. You know, maybe there was I was getting close to
the Cyber Choices program, I think.
But I think it is like, you know, I think that, and it is that when you're curious and you want to explore what the limits of things are, but without necessarily doing it in a malicious or malignant way, you're just like, is this possible? Can I do this? Will this break anything? As a thought experiment almost, but a very practical thought experiment. So anyway, that's a bit of personal lived experience, but I think that curiosity is really kind of, you know, key.
Yeah, and I would say actually that there are loads of training platforms out there that young people who are curious can use, where they can safely test their skills, as opposed to seeing what they can do with the school website, seeing what they can do with the local bank or whatever. There are definitely, you know, safe environments where they can test out those skills, practice those skills, improve their skills. And again, it's all about that legitimate use of them then. So
yeah, I think one of those platforms actually to really endorse, we were so proud of, is there's things like Try Hack Me, which is great for students in the UK, and that was actually built by a graduate from the Cyber First Bursary Scheme. So, you know, you're seeing the fruits of the labour where these people have gone through the whole programme and come out and said, actually, I'm going to build something to help other people. So, yeah, 100% agree. We're now creating those safe boxes. You know, we're working with companies like Fortinet who are building another sandbox of their own to give to students in the UK where they can do exactly the same. And I feel like I've got to be careful in case we do with the non-BBC thing and talk about one specific product. Other CTF projects are available. But it's really great to see that is there. You know, James, your background's very similar to mine. I'm not going to say anything incriminating like you've just done, but
wise, Nick, wise.
But that's what brought me into this, a curiosity. I wonder if I can do that. I wonder if I can do this. But now we can do it in very legitimate platforms. And we've got the support of industry who are coming out and say, get me in front of children. We want to tell them about this. So it's evolved from those times I'm sitting, you know, same as yourself, you know, IT only in my secondary school. You know, I used to go and get books on programming and try and find ways around VB. You know, that was the first language I even taught when I became a teacher. So great flashback there. But it's evolved so much now, hasn't it? And I think, you know, I often talk to other teachers and we think about the pedagogy behind maths and that was being taught thousands of years ago. And when we're in a subject which is very new and, you know, you could argue it's got a couple hundred years because of Ada, but really it's still in its infancy, you know, we're really new. So all the things we're doing now is evolving and it's great to see that leap forward. And I'm sure it was only about 10 years ago, James, you were in school, same as myself. But, you know, we're seeing that total twist into we've got these exciting platforms. And it only lets me think what's next for education in this sphere. You know, how do we take it from, you know, when GCSE computing or the secondary qualification computing first launched, I went and saw lessons and people were talking about social engineering, for example. And they put a definition on the board and say, copy this into your book. This is what blagging is. Now, that is such a powerful, it's called a power skill in cybersecurity because it's a confidence-based element. But you can't work that way anymore. We need to lift education off the page of a textbook, off the PowerPoint slide, and create those opportunities. And exactly as Claire says now, through these platforms, we're doing that. And it's really great to see, especially the stuff. There's a lot of great positives going on in Scotland too, as well as around the whole of the United Kingdom and the world. Lots of different platforms pushing stuff together, which have got games where children can use social engineering skills against, you know, against a programmed response.
That's cool. And I think that's like one of the big sort of things that might have changed since, like, you know, I was learning, just going back to sort of my experience, when I was learning in a bit of an isolation, basically. There was no, like, I was craving input and opportunities to do things. And now there are so many kind of activities and projects and competitions and ways for young people to kind of connect with this whole discipline, whether it's cybersecurity as a sub area or computing just broadly. There's so much rich content out there for young people to engage with, that I think, you know, the future is really exciting, frankly, you know, in computing education. So yeah, Di.
Yeah, well, just to pick up on that. So for the teachers out there that are listening to this podcast now, where's the number one place to go to start to find these resources to engage our young people? So, you know, if you were to just recommend one website, where would you send them?
For me, it would be the southeastcyber.police.uk/teachers page, because we have got, from that, there's a hyperlink to an educational resources page, which is sorted by key stage for the UK. But yeah, there's loads of resources on there that we've linked that we think are pretty good, either at sort of improving like coding skills or whatever, but also just around online behaviours and ethical use of computing. Not just around the Computer Misuse Act, but we just figured that the more we can promote good online behaviours, the more that will roll out into general behaviour online. But we've also got a training and skills page on there as well, that you can jump to. So there's quite a few bits on there.
Super. And what about you, Nick? Where's the number one place you're going to send them?
I'm going to send them to the NCSE page and say, Google search cyber first. Read about the competitions on there, you know, that are fantastic. The national girls competition, where we have national finals. And I'm not going to tell what the prize are because it happens in about 2 weeks and I don't want to ruin that on the national scale. But there's all sorts on there. There's resources, there's programs that are linked to the nearest cyber first region, and you can reach out there. it's just full of great points to start off. I've got multiple hats up, so I'm not going to talk about the other options because you're spoiled for choice now, and it's so lovely to see. Like the stuff that you work on, Diane. You've got the other side, the NCC resources. You've got all sorts available. But I'm going to say, from my perspective, go to Cyber First and look at what's going on there.
Thanks both, and we'll make sure that there's links to those in the show notes. I'm going to ask, we're coming to sort of the end of our time, but I'm going to ask one kind of different question, which is, I thought it was really interesting. A little while ago in the conversation, we were talking about the diverse nature of this sort of field in terms of who can come into the field. And it struck me that feels like a benefit that is maybe a side benefit, working with a real variety of individuals. So I'm just curious, are there other benefits apart from like the kind of challenging and enriching career and exciting opportunity? Like, what are the other benefits to like working in cybersecurity?
Well, I would say it's a constantly evolving landscape. So there's constantly new challenges out there, which is fantastic. It keeps us on our toes, certainly working in policing.
No, I would entirely echo what Claire said there. I talk, Cyber First and the NCSE is full of people that have been there for a long time. When we work with GCHQ, there's people who've gone in at 18 and are still there now in their 50s and beyond. And they'll tell you themselves where they went in and what they were doing back then is completely radically different to what they're doing now. And what they think they're going to be doing in 5 years, they don't even know yet. Where it's something which is evolving on a global stage. The emergence of AI is going to be a really interesting challenge in a big way, and it already is. And, it makes me laugh. And we're doing a podcast now. I'm sure we could use the audio recording of any of us and create a speech bot which sounds exactly like us and use it to vish people. So it's that exciting. You're really at the cutting edge. But beyond that, there's also, from a personal point of view, there's that personal safety, there's that protection. You're learning about threat in a wider context, which is kind of what we're saying we want for all children to have as well. So it's evolving, and not many careers do that. Some careers can be monotonous. I remember a long time ago at 18 years old, I went into a position in manufacturing, and I sat down with a guy who I think saved my life. He said, I will give you a job today, but you're going to make the same component every 60 seconds. You're going to do 60 an hour for 8 hours a day for the next however many years till you retire. Is that what you want, or do you want to go and do something different? And I stood up and left that office, and I've never looked back. And, and it's very true. And my career changes week to week, what's coming out, more like exciting opportunities. And I think that can be quite unique in certain sectors. I mean, tech has this sort of thing, this growing bubble. I mean, we're all former teachers, and we're now, you guys are working for an amazing producer of components who are now investing themselves into education, really caring about the community. I mean, who would have thought that? So it is. That's exactly where we want to be. I think the tech and cyber in particular has that.
Well, I don't know about you, Diane, but I think we could probably continue talking for another hour, if not more. But we should probably draw a line under things, just to give our listeners a little bit of a break, really. But yeah, so thank you so much to our guests, Nick and Claire, for sharing their time and experience and expertise. And we're back in a couple of weeks with another exciting computing topic to explore with the help of our guests. If you have a question for us or a comment about our discussion today, then you can email via podcast@helloworld.cc, or you can tweet us at helloworld_edu. So, Di, what did we learn today?
Well, I don't know even where to start, James. So I think my number one takeaway fact is that over 50% of crime is now done online. I think that's staggering. I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was that high. And then following up on that, obviously, is the age of the people as well. The fact that, younger and younger people are getting involved in that, and the fact that they don't necessarily know that it's criminal acts that they're committing. But I think that was quite staggering. And then the other thing I think was just this, I'm just thinking, am I too late to embark on a career in cybersecurity? Because I think for somebody who's always kind of wanting something new and a new challenge, it sounds absolutely fascinating. Anyway, James, what about you? What did you learn?
Well, probably too late. I've learned maybe not to admit prior misdemeanors on a public broadcast.
Too late.